This psalm also was composed by David as he fled from his ungrateful son. He probably addressed it to God at dawn after the first night of his escape. This can be inferred psychologically from the style of the psalm, which is stronger and shows greater indignation towards the rebels. While fleeing, David had prayed fervently, as seen in Psalm 4, but had not the heart to mention his ungrateful son by name. So he spoke in general terms about the wicked who were forcing him to flee. His fatherly heart recoiled at the thought that his own son was the instigator of the rebellion. So he excused him in his heart and attributed his waywardness to others. However, after the first night, at the break of day, when one's thinking is usually calmer and more objective, David could not help thinking about his son's guilt. In sleep, as often happens, he had lost the awareness of being a fugitive, of being far from the holy city. Thus he realized upon awaking that he was far from the tabernacle of his God. He turned his thoughts and heart towards the house of the Lord and exclaimed, "Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Listen to the voice of my cry, my King and my God." His heart longed to bridge the distance separating him from the tabernacle, and so he pleaded with God to hear him as if he were right before him. Invoking the Lord with affection, he called him my King and my God, for now the holy city was overrun by an intruder, a false king, as David considered the Lord to be the true king of Jerusalem. He called upon the Lord to defend it. He felt superior to his oppressors by invoking God. He rejected his son's usurpation by calling upon his God, his King, the King of Kings, against whom no one could stand. "To you I address my prayer, O Lord," exclaimed David. "From the morning you will hear my voice. From the morning I will stand before you in anticipation, because you are not a God who wants iniquity, neither will the perfidious dwell near you, nor will the unjust be able to stand before your eyes." With these words, David was saying, although I am far from the tabernacle and unable to participate at the morning sacrifice, still I will address my prayer to you, and you will hear my voice from your ark. I will stand before you and await your intervention, for it is impossible that you, who desire not iniquity, will tolerate that the perfidious, that is, my rebellious son, dwell near you, and that the unjust, that is, those who unjustly oppose me, can stand before your eyes in possession of the holy city. David's hope becomes certainty when he reflects on God's mode of operation. God not only does not desire iniquity, but hates it. That is, he drives it from himself, along with all those who commit it. Those who tell lies he scatters, because he is truth. The sedition had occurred through wicked and deceitful plots. Therefore, it is certain that the Lord abominates the bloodthirsty and deceitful man. Absalom is bloodthirsty because he had taken up arms against his father, and he is deceitful because it was by lying that he had gathered his recruits. It is clear that David, by virtue of being always meek and inclined to forgive, did not wish harm to his son and his followers. Rather, David observed and prophesied that God would not allow the triumph of injustice and deception. He stated this with a burning desire to once again pray in the house of God. Thus, with the certainty of being victorious, David adds, I, by your great mercy, will enter your house. I will adore in your holy temple in your fear. Yet how can he have the consolation of returning to the house of God to worship if the Lord does not guide him? First of all, by making him righteous. Having said before that iniquity cannot stand before God, out of profound humility, he fears that he is not righteous enough to deserve that grace, and therefore he prays to the Lord to guide him in the ways of his righteousness and to direct his way in his presence because of his enemies. The danger is great, and overcoming it is formidable. Thus, he needs greater holiness in order to triumph and be worthy of returning to God's presence in his tabernacle. The path to victory is not easy, and so David calls upon God to direct his way before him, both to make him holy and to guide him through such grave danger. His enemies are liars, with wicked hearts, devious. Their throats are like open graves, unhesitating in causing death and destruction with their malicious ways, ready to devour their prey as an open grave is ready to receive a corpse. Without fear of God, they could even promote idolatry or desecrate the tabernacle. This is perhaps David's greatest fear. So he asks God to thwart their plans, drive them away from his presence, and not allow them to desecrate his house. Instead, he asks that all who hope in him be filled with joy, confident that those who love him will rejoice and glorify him. He is certain of this because the Lord blesses the righteous and does not abandon them. He is sure of this for himself and his followers because, even though they are in such grave distress, God has enclosed them with his benevolence like a shield. St. Augustine sees in the title of the psalm, "For the one who obtains the inheritance," an allusion to the Church, which receives through Jesus Christ the inheritance of eternal life and possesses God himself, to whom she is united and blessed forever. David, fleeing from his own son, far from the holy city and the tabernacle, represents Jesus Christ, driven out by heresy from the nations sanctified by him, and from the tabernacle where he dwelt among them as a prisoner of love. Consequently, it also represents the Church, forced to flee from regions where she once reigned, full of anguish and distress because of the ingratitude of her children. Like the fugitive David, the Church, among her faithful children, has never ceased to direct this prayer to God since the very first moment Protestant heresy began wreaking havoc on souls. It continues to pray today, confident that one day she will rejoice at the return of her wayward children. Heresy hopes in vain to overthrow the true bride of the divine King, futilely relying on lies and deceit. The Church is surrounded by God's favor like a shield. She cannot perish and is always triumphant. She will see those small gangs of Satan who dared to usurp her name and authority overturned and crushed. Therefore, we join with the Church in praying and reciting this very psalm against heresies. Hence, the Church, whether militant or suffering, lifts up her voice to her God, awaits his mercy, frees herself from the snares of evil, and groaning, purifies herself from the dust of the world, directs her steps to the Lord, abhors iniquity and lies, and passes through the waves of the storm into the gloom of anguish, surrounded by God's kindness like a shield. We, fortunate to fight in her ranks, strive to have her trust, as from the break of day we lift up our voices to the Lord, praying, that he directs our path before him and guides us in his justice. We ask for his help to overcome the insidious enemies who try to separate us from him, so that after death we may swiftly reach his glory to praise and bless him in the eternal joy of his love. I hope you are enjoying Don Dolindo's inspiring and profound wisdom on the Psalms. You're welcome to leave a comment, prayer intention, or suggestion below. I read them all and answer most of them. Arrivederci till next time. Jesus, you take over. Take care of everything. Gesù, pensaci tu.